Thank you very much. When it's Tuesday, it's the Raw Leadership Talk. We're so glad today to have Arthur Mbugua again, a certified accountant and auditor, joining us again today for the Mentality Change series. And today we're going to be discussing a very important topic. Guess what it is? Living within your means. Something that eludes a lot of people. Where are you watching us from? We'll be glad to hear from you. We'll be glad to hear from you. Momo Philip says present. Thank you, Momo, for joining us. Living within your means. This is what we are discussing today. Where are you joining us from? Great to hear from you. We are on standby, ready for the Raw Leadership Talk. As we listen to Handel Messiah, what a music. Engage with us today. We welcome you for this wonderful, wonderful talk that I believe is going to be very, very beneficial to you. Mark Henry Mwakaya tuning in from Nairobi. Thank you very much, my brother. Where are you watching us from? Glad to be with you. Glad to be with you. I want to hope that we are ready to learn today. And I want us to go straight to the discussion of the day. Salem Lerot, I'm joining you from the one zone, the disease-infected counties. It could be Machakos, it could be Kajiado, it could be Nairobi, it could be Nakuru. Those are the disease zone, infected zone. Judy Mugera tuned. Delvis Njua said, joining you from Mombasa. Thank you very much, Delvis, and welcome to the Raw Leadership Talk. Where are you tuning in from? I would want us to go to the discussion of the day. Arthur, how have you been, my brother?
I'm well, Mr. Mugera. How are you?
I'm good and glad to have you here.
I'm also joining you from the disease-infested region of Kajiado.
Okay. This time round, I guess the people who live within the disease-infested region, they will have to live within their means, and also other Kenyans. Ibra Latimo, present. Thank you for joining us today. So, Arthur, maybe you may want to introduce yourself to the audience again. I know you've been in this platform, but again today we could be joined by different people who have never seen you. Just take a minute and introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you, Dan. Good evening, everyone. My name is Arthur Mbugua, a close friend to Dan Mugera, and I'm really happy once again as we meet in this Raw Leadership Talk, where we discuss leadership issues. And I'm looking forward for an exciting evening. And I'm sure at the end of it all, it will be a great moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. Right to a topic of the day. It's been a battle to a lot of people. You know, people get money, they have resources, but somehow looks like it's difficult to live within someone's means. You know, so what is really living within your means? What is really living within your means?
I think without being very technical, I'm sure most of the viewers here have seen this animal called a tortoise.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me use the analogy of a tortoise in layman's language.
Mm-hmm.
Now, during his entire lifetime, the tortoise lives within the confines of its shell. That
Mm-hmm.
shell grows with the same pace the body of the tortoise grows. And at no point will the tortoise be more bigger or lesser, smaller compared to the size of the shell, because in case of any danger, it needs to retreat as fast as possible to that shell, and during its free time, it needs to move freely within that shell.
Mm-hmm.
That is basically what it means to live within the confines of your resources.
Mm-hmm.
That your resources must be able to accommodate you as you are, and you should never try to outgrow that unless your resources also increase.
Mm-hmm.
So in that analogy, that is the bare minimum in terms of understanding what does it mean to live within your means.
Wow. I like that analogy of the tortoise. That The tortoise, hides, then comes out and lives within the confines of the shell. So how come people seem to shun this habit a lot, especially in this side of the world? Is it outdated to live within our means, or there's something wrong with us?
Maybe I'll associate it with quite a number of variables. It could be an issue to do with the value system. It could be an issue to do with maybe pressure from the society. I think there's this issue of sizing up. Maybe you are from college and you're sizing up, where are your peers and all that. So it could be a variable of so many things. But personally, I want to associate it with the value system. Let me take you back. Before education reforms came into play, the reforms that were brought by Matiang'i, and I repeat Matiang'i just in case you think it's Magoha, there used to be a lot of cheating in exams. And the question is, who was helping these students to cheat, if not the parents and maybe the teachers? Before we realize, these are the children who end up in organization. And before you realize, these are the people who believe that in this world, you can be anything, regardless the means. So, because it's an issue of value system, then people tend that today you tend to you outgrow your resources, because to you the means to how you arrive there really doesn't matter. So personally, I want to associate it with the value system. But if people can have a value system that life is brick on top of brick, it's about successive progression, it's about growth, and before you realize, those are mottos of no pain, no gain, resilience and hard work, then maybe they'll just remain as school mottos. But if they're not inculcated in the lives of those pupils who pass through those schools, then we'll always be struggling with people who try to outgrow their means, because they don't understand the concept of life, that it needs to be built brick by brick until you reach up there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Building it brick by brick until you reach there. Moses Gwei, keeping up with us. Thank you very much. Eunice Karanja tuned in. Moses Gwei, you say keeping up with the Jonases. And that's a common thing, we try to really pretend to be who we are not, and before long we realize we are ruining ourselves big time. From my book, Eradicating a Poverty Mentality, which I know you have read, and you're even going through the Cause Mentality Change 101, living within your means is one of Japanese great culture. What lessons can Africans learn from that? Are there any lessons, Arthur, you think Africans can learn from Japanese culture of living within your own means?
Yes, actually, I was glad to see that actually that it's part of Japanese culture. So I'm just trying to imagine a child is born in Japan, and at that tender age, they are told to live within their means. And I was saying, what a wonderful way to bring up a society. But what I can say, it is possible then for a country to live without its resources. And let me say, this is not rocket science. I think if I'm to take you back, just the other day when the continent was mourning the death of Magufuli, actually the president, in his own words, in fact, I just tried to look for that passage, maybe I can just read and just pick the exact words of the president. In his tribute to the president, who is also the current East African Community Chairman, said,
you mean President Kenyatta?
Yes,
okay.
That Dr. Magufuli had shown that the continent can keep its head held high and finance most of its projects from revenues collected from within without depending on foreign aids, whose aid often comes with many conditions. I don't want to add more because those were not my words. So it is not rocket science. It is possible for Africa. It is possible, you as a family household, to live within your means. It's not rocket science.
Thank you very much, Carol Mwema. Say brick by brick until you get there. Is echoing your words. Ndambo Pastor Tom from Kilifi says following. And we are really, really glad. For those who are joining us, we are discussing living within your means, mentality change series that is designed from my book, Eradicating a Poverty Mentality, tried to simply have a discussion here. And you could be having questions, opinions, observation. Please feel free to post them, and we will try our best to tackle those questions. Eve Trace Masai, watching from Mombasa, thank you, my sister, for joining us in this Role Leadership Talk. You know, Africa and Africans, Arthur, seem to be overwhelmed with this culture. From our government to individuals borrowing from banks, you know, we have Fuliza and other money lending organizations which are fleecing, you know, people so much. How can we tame this habit? How can we tame this habit?
I think, broadly speaking, I think I will say, first of all, it borders down to stewardship.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the problem of our continent and specifically talk of probably our nation, that if I think this is public knowledge, that probably from our national GDP, you are saying a third of it cannot be accounted for.
Yes.
If a third of it, probably part of that budget is financed by debt, then how else do you expect a time will come when you'll be free from debt? So the issue of stewardship comes into play. But also let me look, because you're asking me the question, how can we tame this habit?
Yeah,
I think the answer is very simple.
It seems to be a government habit, but again, also individuals also seem to be under pressure to really live above their means.
So it is simply the principle of cut your coat according to your cloth. If you study the analysis of the most of the digital, because you've talked of the issue of Fuliza and the digital lenders and all that, an average loan they advance to an average Kenyan is between 3,000 and probably 10,000 for those who have a very high credit score. Honestly speaking, with a loan of 3,000, I want to believe probably majority borrow these loans for consumption. This is not like mortgage and all those huge loans probably you are building. You are borrowing so that maybe you
can't invest 10,000.
Yes. So that now brings a cultural issue. And the question is, before you borrow, just think whether it's necessary. If it's not necessary, then can it wait? Then if it cannot wait, then is it sustainable? If you borrow probably those to 3,000 to 5,000 for that weekend out, the question is, how can you sustain that? If you borrow maybe to buy, maybe this is an occasion you borrow from those digital lenders, maybe to buy a designer attire and all that. The question is it sustainable? So the long-term solution to this, you just need to understand that you need to cut your coat according to your cloth, that if it is not necessary, I tell you it can wait. If it cannot wait, then ask yourself whether whatever means you are taking, you are able to sustain it. And I think in the previous, we've seen a lot of time whereby it come to, like, for instance, using our continent as a good example. You've heard of foreigners taking charge of maybe ports, taking charge of projects until the time they repay when they are returned back to their country. I want to believe at the point of borrowing, maybe that nation did not sit down and think, is this debt sustainable? And Mugera, let me clear this analogy, because anytime there is borrowing, I hear this justification that you are borrowing to develop. We are borrowing to build rail lines. You are borrowing to do ABCD. But the truth of the matter is nothing stops us from using our internally generated resources still to progress with whatever we want to achieve. It might take longer. You'd rather say that it might take another 10 years for you to build, let's say, a railway line, than maybe taking a debt without a clear plan on how you are going to repay it. And by and large, you find that a country is auctioned simply because somebody did not well think of how sustainable that debt is. Some debts come with a lot of conditions.
Sorry for cutting you, Arthur. Do you think we are there as a country right now? There seem to be a lot of noise, even recently, over the over 200 billion that the government is taking from IMF. There's a lot of noise. Kenya seems to be tired of this debt. They feel generations and generations are going to pay. Do you think, as a country, we are already there?
Well, that's a hard question, Dan, because every day I wake up, I try to be among the few optimistic Kenyans in terms of our nation. But the truth of the matter, as for those who are in the accounting field, you know what we call red flags. Things that probably will suggest things are not right. The debt you just talked about, I think one of the conditions that came is they were saying probably you need to cut the employment in the public sector. Basically, they are talking of retrenchment. So why should you take a loan that part of the condition they are telling you, you need to retrench some of your workers? Isn't that a problem on top of a problem? Look at the SGR. I think the status is it is currently running at a loss. And however,
billions of shillings already.
However optimistic I am, then I'm asking myself, then at what point will we just break even? Then at what point will we start making a profit so that this project can repay itself? Probably I'll not be there. Probably my children will not be there. Probably my grandsons, my grandchildren, the people who are going to pay that debt. So truly speaking, in as much as I'm very optimistic about our nation, but there are quite a number of red flags that probably would suggest things are not in the right track. And the sooner we realize, the better.
Thank you for those important points that you're bringing. Martin Gitai says, great and practical solution. Thank you, Martin, for joining us. Mark seems to have some questions here. I don't know whether they're opinions or a question. He said, who is to blame in our government of Kenya in terms of this issue of lending and borrowing? Is it our leaders or us as voters? How can one eradicate this habit of living under the foundation of loans? I don't know whether you've gotten those questions. Are you able to see them from your side, Arthur?
No, I can't. But I think if I go to right, this is someone asking who is to blame.
Yes.
I want to believe this is it's a collective problem, because I think in one of your books said everything is built on leadership.
Yes.
During the previous outro, and a lot of people were throwing words to our president, I think my question was asking myself, I don't know whether Kenyans are aware that every debt has to be subjected through parliament.
Yes.
I don't know whether Kenyans are aware that even the budget itself has to be subjected to your area member of parliament, who is told that out of this budget of, let's say, 1 billion, half of it is going to be from internal resources, half of it we are going to borrow. And they approve that. So truly speaking, where we are, it is a collective problem. It is from representation part, and that is all the representative angle, but also on us, because at the end of the day, these are our leaders. Right now we are in the discussion of who is going to be the next president of this country. It's you and me who's going to elect them. So it is a collective problem, but I think, honestly speaking, that those who are representing us probably have failed us in terms of making prudent decisions as far as management resources is concerned.
And it's funny that we are discussing who is going to be our president, but we don't analyze their capacity as far as economy is concerned and leadership is concerned. And I think that's a really, really sad affair in this particular country. But do you think, Arthur, that poverty is the main reason causing us to live beyond our means in this side of the world? That people, live from hand to mouth, and sometimes they don't have that. And so if they have an opportunity to fuliza, to just put food on the table, it's really easy for them to do that. Do you think it's poverty or simply a poverty mentality that is pushing us to do that?
Yes, I think I look your answer very careful in terms of yes and no. Yes, as you're saying, truly speaking, majority of Kenyans are living hand to mouth, and every opportunity to bring a shilling on the table, whether it is through fuliza or whether it is through borrowing and all that. I'm sure a lot of people listening today, probably you have people who lent money and they never paid you back.
Yes.
That is, sometimes poverty contributes to that. But then allow me to also look at it in terms of a culture. What values have we inculcated within the society in terms of there is tomorrow?
Yes.
Majority probably of us, with every increase of resource, of every increase of an avenue for livelihood, it is followed by a corresponding increase in terms of your expenditure.
Repeat
And
that. Repeat that. I want people to get that.
majority of us, a proportion increment in terms of your resources or your income, it is followed by a proportionate increase in terms of your expenditure.
That means you
Otherwise, that is
get
to
a
say,
little bit more money, and already you begin to think of a higher life to increase your expenditure.
Increase your expenditure. That probably if today you are living in a house of 5,000 and miraculously maybe your income doubles or you get a better job, maybe now you are thinking of moving to a more big and probably a more expensive house. That is basically what I'm talking about. Instead of the first thing that maybe that should come is, then how can I save? How can I put the marginal increment probably into a saving with a view that tomorrow there could be a deficit or difficult times might come ahead? And I'm saying this from experience because I'm working in a circle-based organization.
Yes.
And unlike commercial banks, circles work with a model whereby what you save is what enables you to borrow. That is to mean if you have 1,000 and maybe the multiplier effect is 3,000, then with your 1,000 you can borrow 3,000. It's a multiplier effect. And one of the challenges we are getting with the current society is we are having a generation who don't believe in saving. And they are telling, why should I save with you to borrow? I can work with my payslip to a commercial bank and they can give me a payslip loan without even depositing a coin to them. So you see, this comes more of a value system. Have we taught our society that at the end of the day, it's important to save because you never know what tomorrow might come? And for those who are Christians, if you look at the analogy of Egypt those days, the miracle that simply Joseph did, he was able to predict. He was able to predict that there is coming a time of deficit. Can we save? So that time comes, we'll have enough into our banks. So sometimes we find ourselves we're in that borrowing simply because in the days of abundance, we never factored in that probably days of deficit would lie ahead. And probably you'll have accumulated some reserves that maybe you can use instead of directly falling back into loans or into borrowing.
Great insight there. Thank you very much. I can see Mahulo Boniface saying, so enlightening. Carol Mwema is echoing a question here. So does it mean that voting affects this? Yes, voting affects our economy big time. My brother and friend Martin Duby watching crystal clear from Dallas, Texas. Productive deliberation, he says. And my friend Wambui from Mombasa says Mtuwetu syndrome. Right there. We want to vote people without examining them, and then we get ourselves in a disaster. Expenditure and lifestyle, Carol Mama is echoing that. And Moses Gwe says there are two types of poverty, money poverty and character poverty. Which one are Kenya suffering from? And Wanjiku Gicho says, great insights right there. As we go to the end, I would like, as it is our custom here at the Raw Leadership Talk, to give you 3 minutes to just take it on, give you your closing remarks as we close this program today.
I think maybe I can take this opportunity, Dan, to clear the air about maybe the misconception of what legacy means. Because over the last past, maybe especially now in leadership, it's like to an extent a lot of people are obsessed in terms of, as I exit, I want to leave a legacy. And sometimes that misconception probably can drive you in a situation now when you are living beyond your means. So let me give an example. A lot of people probably have taken the concept of legacy in terms of, if maybe you are in, let's say, let me use an example of a governor. That at the time, maybe you exit, you've built roads, maybe you've put hospitals in place, you've put all those infrastructural things.
Yes.
But in my opinion, that is not what legacy is about. Legacy is about a value system.
Yes.
Legacy, it's about what do you leave in the hearts of people that at the 100 years down the line will be able to tell there existed a certain person whom brought this particular, and let me use an example of Nelson Mandela. I don't know how many of us here probably know how many roads Nelson Mandela built. I don't know how many of us here knows how many jobs Nelson Mandela created. But today when that name is mentioned, we know this person in terms of a person who brought the issue of reconciliation. And he made South Africans to believe that, yes, these people have oppressed us for all those years. These people have jailed me for 27 years, but it's time to forgive one another. It is time to move forward. And he was able to hold the country together. That is a value system that he left. And let me tell you, whether Nelson Mandela built roads or not, today the whole world remember. That is what true legacy is all about. And like here in our country, that I don't know why every leader wants to come with an agenda. From national government to county government to MCA, everybody wants to have an agenda of whether you build stadiums, whether you build roads. And because your resources are not enough, you end up borrowing. You are always trying to leave your legacy, thinking that we'll remember you by the number of roads that you built. That's a lie. After all, the roads that you're building them using taxpayers' money. It is more of our rights to have medicine in hospitals. It's not a legacy issue. We will not remember you by building us, let's say, a railway line, because that is our money. That is taxpayers' money. We will remember you by the value system that you leave for us. And how I wish that we'll not strain ourselves so much so that you are able to live within what we can accommodate, because at the end of the day, true legacy is about a value system. How I wish our next president, in as much as there will be a status quo for the roads, there might be a status quo for the health situation, but at the end of 10 years, you'll be able to say that during my tenure, I showed Kenyans that your tribe does not matter. During my tenure, I showed Kenyans that as long as you are corrupt, you cannot succeed in this country. That during my tenure, I showed Kenyans that unity of purpose is what matters. It's not your tribe. It's not your affiliations. You don't need to know somebody to get a government tender. To me, I'll accord that person will have achieved legacy, even if we'll remain with a state of poor roads. Because legacy, it's about the value system. And let me tell you, when you fix the value system, you will not struggle with all these issues that you are struggling with today, because it will propel into good stewardship and things will just begin to work. So let us fix the true issues, because that is what legacy it's all about.
Wow, wow, wow. Value system, value system, value system. And you can agree with me that our problem here is a problem of value. A problem of leadership is a problem of value. A problem of our citizens is a problem of value. And so if we fix that value system, everything else will come into place. Thank you very much, Arthur, for those wonderful insights that you have shared with our viewers today. Always a pleasure to connect with you and to host you here at the Raw Leadership Talk. And I want to believe that all those people who joined us today and those who are going to watch us even after this live broadcast will benefit a lot from the nuggets of wisdom as far as living within your means is concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to end this today, but be sure to join us next Tuesday as we continue with the Mentality Change series, Raw Leadership Talk, right here at this place. Sami Waititu says, my senior Arthur Mbugua, great insight. Thank you very much, and may God bless you. See you next Tuesday.
See you, and